Subscribe to my YouTube channel, share it with your friends, and comment your thoughts. The girl in the attic window. The storm came out of nowhere. Daniel gripped the steering wheel tighter as wind battered his truck, headlights flickering in the downpour. His GPS had gone dead half an hour ago. No signal, no map, no music, just static. He should have turned around. He should have stayed on the main road. But something had pulled him off it. Not something logical, something familiar, like a memory he couldn't quite place. That's when he saw it. The Willowbrook farmhouse, half collapsed, swallowed by trees. The same house from the old news. Stories. The same house where he and Milo, his younger brother, had once played in the attic years before the fire. Years before Milo had died. He hadn't thought about that attic in 2 decades. He hadn't wanted to, but there it was, like the house had been waiting. He didn't remember pulling over, didn't remember grabbing his flashlight. 1 second he was in the truck, and the next he was standing at the gate, boots sinking into wet grass. The front door hung slightly open, creaking in the wind. There was no light inside, just the scent of mold, wet wood, and something worse. Something like burnt fabric and copper. Daniel stepped inside. The door slammed behind him. At first there was silence, long, thick, absolute. Even the storm outside seemed muffled, like the house swallowed sound. Then, movement upstairs, a quick flicker, like someone pulling back from the attic window. He looked up and froze. There she was, a girl, standing in the attic window. Pale skin, wet, stringy hair. A white dress, tattered and hanging off her like it didn't belong. Her face was pressed to the glass, too close, too still, except for one small movement, her hand. She raised it and pressed her palm flat against the inside of the window. The blood on the glass looked fresh, the message written backwards in smeared red. "I never left." Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He stepped back instinctively, but something clattered behind him, a chair falling over. It echoed too loud in the empty house. When he looked back at the window, the girl was gone. No, not again. This couldn't be happening. He wasn't a kid anymore. He wasn't some stupid teenager scaring himself with ghost stories, and yet his skin burned with cold. His brain screamed at him to leave. But his feet, they didn't move, not even when he heard the soft knock behind him. Turned slowly. There at the end of the hallway stood a boy, drenched in water, shirt clinging to his thin chest, mud covering his feet and shins. His eyes were pale, not blind, but almost glassy, like he was looking through Daniel, not at him. "Milo," Daniel whispered. The boy said nothing. Instead, he opened his mouth, and something clinked on the floor. A key, old, rusted, the kind you only saw in antique locks. Then, just as silently, the boy turned and walked down the hallway, disappearing into the dark. Daniel's knees buckled. His heart was sprinting. His stomach twisted so violently he thought he might throw up. But his body moved on its own, like something ancient was guiding him. He bent down, picked up the key. It was warm, wet, and familiar. A sound echoed from above, a groan of shifting wood, slow and painful, like a lock being undone after years of disuse. The attic, no. He turned toward the stairs. A dragging sound, and like chains, scraped across the floor overhead. Then came a voice. Not loud, not even human exactly, a whisper. Wet, close. "We kept a piece of you." Daniel ran. He slammed into the kitchen, slipping on moss-covered tiles. The back door, it had to be open, it wasn't. The lock was thick, sealed from the outside. Why would it be locked from out there? He fumbled with the key, but it didn't fit. The teeth weren't right. This key was for something older. Then he saw it. In the corner, half covered by an old rug, a trapdoor. His mouth went dry. This hadn't been here when they were kids. He knelt. The key slid in cleanly. Click. The hatch creaked open, and a wave of stench hit him, like rotted meat, damp earth, and something electric, the kind of smell that buzzes at the back of your teeth. He leaned down. Narrow stairs vanished into blackness. No light, no sound, then breath. Not his. Coming from down there, steady, animalistic, rhythmic. Then came the voice. "Danny, are you finally ready to come home?" Female. Familiar. His mother. Dead 20 years. He slammed the hatch, closed, panting hard, but when he turned, the girl from the attic was standing in the kitchen. No footsteps. No warning, just there. Her hair was dripping like she'd been drowning. Her face was stitched down the center, not with thread, but with pages, newspaper, glued and stapled to her skin. He could read some of them through the blood. Boy. Survives fire, brother perishes. Mother declared missing after tragedy. No bodies ever recovered from Willowbrook basement. Her lips moved. "You were supposed to burn with us." Daniel stumbled backward. The girl stepped forward. With each step, the temperature dropped. Frost began to bloom across the kitchen tile. From the trapdoor came another sound, scratching. From below, then a voice, a second voice, a child's. You left me in the dark." "Milo," Daniel whispered. I didn't know." But Milo was behind him now, a flash of movement. Cold fingers touched his wrist, and suddenly Daniel was somewhere else. The fire. It was back. He was 10 years old again, the attic filled with smoke. Milo trapped behind the door, screaming, his mother screaming too. The sound of nails breaking against the wood, and Daniel frozen. He hadn't opened the door. He'd run, he'd jumped from the window and never gone back. That night had been wiped from his mind. Doctors called it shock, trauma. But now he remembered everything, and the house remembered him too. He fell to the floor, choking on the memory. His hands trembled as he reached for the flashlight again. The beam flickered, then steadied, casting light on the kitchen wall. The wallpaper was peeling. Underneath, something had been carved into the wood. Letters, dozens of them. "He never saved us." The girl's voice returned, right beside his ear. "But you'll stay this time." The door to the attic slammed open upstairs. Wood cracked, chains groaned. Then footsteps, heavy ones, began to descend the stairs. Each step shook dust from the walls. Something massive was coming. Not the girl, not Milo, not his mother. Something. A shape Daniel had seen only once, in a nightmare as a child. A thing with no face, just skin stitched over bone, covered in ash, dragging a bag behind it. The bag moved. It screamed. Daniel grabbed the key. The flashlight. His body finally kicked into survival mode. He hurled a chair through the nearest window, shattering glass and wood. The storm howled. He jumped. Branches snapped beneath him, thorns tearing into his clothes as he rolled down the hill. He didn't stop running until the house was a speck behind him. The attic light flickering like a dying candle in the trees. He didn't look back, not even when he heard her scream his name. The house remembers everything. Daniel didn't stop running until his legs gave out. He collapsed in the dirt by the side of a narrow trail, lungs heaving like bellows, rain soaking through to his bones. The storm was still raging overhead, but it was the silence inside his mind that scared him more. No more screaming, no girl in the window, no whispers, just wind and water. But he could still feel it, like the house had left something inside him, something breathing. The trees swayed violently around him, their silhouettes jagged and unnatural in the lightning flashes. He pulled out his phone again. Still dead. Not just out of battery. Dead, like it had been drained. That thing in the attic. The trap door. The key. And Milo. Milo had spoken. That wasn't a dream. That wasn't hallucination. Daniel could still feel the key in his hand, even though it was gone now, lost somewhere during the fall. He wiped his face, trying to steady himself, and that's when he heard it, a voice, close, calling his name. "Daniel!" He spun around. The voice was female, breathless, familiar. "Daniel, it's me!" The flashlight flickered on again. Not his, but someone else's, bobbing through the trees. Then she appeared, soaked to the skin, blonde hair plastered to her forehead, boots kicking up mud. "Erin!" Daniel blinked, disoriented. "Erin! How the hell was she here?" "I saw your truck," she said. "It was just sitting on the road, engine still running, door wide open. I followed your trail into the woods. What the hell are you doing out here?" Daniel tried to speak, but his mouth was dry. He hadn't seen Erin in almost 2 years. Not since the fallout after the funeral. She was Milo's godmother, one of the few people who stuck around after the fire. For a while, he managed to croak out, "You shouldn't be here." "I could say the same to you." She looked him over, her eyes narrowing. "Daniel, what did you see?" He didn't answer right away, because how do you explain that? Instead, he asked, "Do you remember the attic window?" Her face went pale. "You saw her, didn't you?" Daniel stepped back. "Wait, what, you know?" Erin looked away. "I thought I imagined it, when we were kids. That night of the fire, I saw her too." Daniel stared at her. The memory slammed back. Erin had been at the house that night. She'd babysat them. She was the one who'd run for help. "Who is she?" he asked. "I don't know," Erin whispered. "I used to think it was just grief, just guilt, but I've seen her again, in reflections, in dreams, even now." Her voice dropped. "She doesn't live in that house, Daniel. She is the house." The wind suddenly stopped. Dead silence fell over the woods, and then laughter, childlike, echoing. Daniel's blood ran cold. It was close, too close. Erin grabbed his arm. "We have to go, now." They ran, crashing through brush and branches until they reached her car, parked sideways on the road, headlights illuminating the rain like a misty curtain. They got in, slammed the doors, and Erin gunned it. Only once they were half a mile away did she speak again. "I shouldn't have come, but when I saw your truck, I knew. The house. It's not done with you?" Daniel stared at his mud-caked hands. "She said I was supposed to burn with them." Erin didn't look at him. "I think," she said quietly, "she means your mother." Daniel blinked. "What?" Erin finally looked at him. Her expression wasn't fear. It was something worse. Recognition. "Your mum never died in that fire. Not completely." "What the hell are you talking about?" Erin swallowed. "There are rumors. I don't know if they're real, but after the fire, people claimed they still saw her in the woods, talking to herself, carrying things, bones, dolls, pieces of—" She stopped. No one believed them. Everyone assumed she ran off or died somewhere nobody found her. Daniel's voice cracked. "She was a good mom. She loved us." Erin nodded. "I know. But something changed in her before the fire. You remember that, don't you?" He did. The basement, the chanting, the smell. The night she made them drink something bitter and said, "We have to cleanse the bloodline." "She was trying to protect you from something," Erin said, "but I think she opened a door she couldn't." "Close!" Daniel felt sick. Everything made a terrible kind of sense now. His mother hadn't been just grieving. She'd been preparing. For what, he didn't know. But whatever it was, it didn't stay in the basement. Erin pulled over by an old gas station, closed, dark. The only sign of life was a flickering vending machine humming beneath the awning. "Get cleaned up," she said, tossing him a towel from the back seat. "We'll stay at the motel in town tonight. But tomorrow—" She didn't finish. Daniel knew why, because deep down they both knew they had to go back. They arrived at the Edgewood Motel just before 1 a.m., a single-floor strip of old rooms with buzzing lights and a lobby that smelled like old smoke and dust. The clerk barely looked up as Erin signed for the room. Inside, Daniel showered for almost an hour. He couldn't get the smell out of his nose. That basement rot, that burning wood. His own skin felt foreign, like it wasn't his anymore. When he finally emerged, wrapped in a towel. Erin was staring at the motel mirror, her face pale, her lips trembling. "Erin?" he said cautiously. She didn't turn around. "I saw her," she whispered. Daniel's heart skipped. "In the mirror?" She nodded. "She was standing behind me, but when I turned, she was gone." Daniel moved beside her. The mirror looked normal, just their reflections. But as he stared, something shifted. The angle of Erin's smile was wrong. In the reflection, she wasn't crying. She was smirking. He spun to face her. Her real face, stricken, confused, afraid. But in the glass, her reflection winked. Daniel smashed the mirror with his fist. Glass exploded across the sink. Blood mixed with shards. Erin screamed, and from somewhere beneath the floorboards a voice whispered, "We're almost whole again." Later that night, Erin confessed what she'd never told anyone, not even the police, that the night of the fire she'd been in the attic with Milo, that their mom had locked them in, that she'd been chanting in the hallway, something in Latin, lighting candles soaked in her own blood, that the girl in white had appeared in the mirror first, and that Milo had whispered, "She wants to take one of us." Daniel listened in horror. "She told me to choose," Erin said, barely able to breathe. "And I froze. Milo pushed me out the door. He saved me." Daniel couldn't speak, couldn't think. Everything inside him was ice. The girl in white wasn't a ghost. Not exactly. She was a collector, a soul parasite, feeding on pain, guilt, grief. She'd attached herself to Daniel's family, started with their mother, then Milo. And now, "I think she's inside me," Erin whispered. "Sometimes I hear her voice." Daniel turned slowly. Erin's eyes were filled with tears, but behind them, something else was watching and smiling. "She's been here." All along, the next morning, the motel room was heavy with silence. Daniel hadn't slept. He'd spent the night sitting upright in the stiff chair by the door, a steak knife clenched in his fist. He'd watched Erin sleep, or what he hoped was sleep, her face twisted in some invisible battle. Occasionally, she muttered things. In a low, rasping voice that wasn't quite hers, the motel TV clicked on by itself around 4 a.m. It played static at first. Then a voice whispered through the snow, "You chose wrong." Daniel unplugged it and tossed it out the window. Now, as dawn pressed its way through the greasy curtains, he knew one thing for certain. They had to return to the house. Not to escape it. To end it. They drove in silence. The storm had passed, but the skies were still leaden, the trees dripping and bent like they were mourning. Erin clutched a thermos of coffee she hadn't touched. Her hands trembled too much. Daniel finally asked, "Do you remember the ritual Mom used to do in the basement?" Erin nodded slowly. She called it cleansing the sin of inheritance. She thought something was inside her bloodline, that it skipped generations. Daniel's stomach tightened. "Do you think she was right?" "I think—" Erin paused, looking out the window. "I think she made it real. By believing in it so deeply, by feeding it her pain." She looked over at him, eyes glassy. "The thing in the house, it's not just a ghost. It's belief made flesh, grief that took shape, and it wants to finish what she started." Daniel parked the car just off the road, where the woods were thickest. He didn't want anyone else to see where they were going. They geared up with flashlights, knives, rope, and a bottle of gasoline. "If we're lucky," he said, "we burn it down and walk away." "And if we're not?" Erin asked. "Then one of us doesn't walk out at all." The house looked the same. Even after all the years and weather, it stood defiantly, untouched by time, covered in ivy and shadows. The broken windows seemed darker than they should have been, hungrier. The front door creaked open without resistance. Inside, the air was thick and still. Dust coated everything, but the tracks from Daniel's footsteps the night before were clear, and something else was clear too. Other footprints, bare, small, fresh. They followed them in silence, past the ruined staircase, past the burned-out den, to the door beneath the stairs. The basement. Erin hesitated. We never opened it, even as kids. Daniel pulled out a rusted iron key, not the one from his dream, but the real one their mother used to wear around her neck. He'd found it wedged into the pages of her Bible last night back at the motel. He turned the key. The door groaned open. Darkness spilled out like breath. They descended together. Each step felt like a descent into memory, not just his own, but the house's. The walls were slick, and the smell of mold mixed with something older, rotten, sweet. The basement looked untouched. The altar was still there, a stone slab, stained dark. Dozens of melted candle stubs lined the corners. Symbols were etched into the walls. Runes, spirals, claws, eyes. Daniel swept his flashlight across the room. In the far corner was a mirror, the same mirror Erin had described. Tall, oval, framed in black wood. It hadn't cracked or broken in. The fire, it looked untouched. Erin took a sharp breath. She lives in there. Daniel felt it too, the weight behind the glass. Like if he stared too long, something would blink back. I don't get it, he whispered. Why Milo? Why us? Erin stepped closer. Because we stayed, and because your mom opened the door. You remember what she used to say? Daniel shook his head. Erin's voice dropped to a whisper. We carry what we bury. Suddenly the mirror rippled. A face appeared, Milo, eyes wide, mouth open in silent scream. Erin screamed. Daniel lunged forward, but his reflection didn't move. Instead, the reflection of himself reached out and grabbed. Pain shot through Daniel's chest. He staggered back, coughing, feeling something inside twist. The mirror shimmered and Milo was gone, replaced by a tall, thin girl in white. No face, just black pits where eyes should be, and a slit of a mouth. Slowly smiling, Erin gasped. We have to finish it. We have to bind her. Daniel remembered the books, their mother's journals, the pages that had once been tucked beneath floorboards. He reached into his bag and pulled out a folded, charred piece of paper. It had been mailed to him after the funeral anonymously. He'd never opened it until now. It was a ritual, written in their mother's shaky hand. To bind what was born of grief, you must offer what grief cannot bear to lose. Erin stared at the paper. It's asking for a sacrifice. Daniel nodded. Not blood, not life. Memory. They lit the candles. Erin began to chant, voice quivering but steady. The mirror began to shake. The face in the glass twisted, shifted, became their mother. Then Milo. Then Daniel himself, staring back with hollow eyes. You can't take her. The mirror, Daniel hissed. She belongs to me. The walls began to bleed. Black liquid dripped from the ceiling. Erin cried out. The thing in the mirror lunged. Cracks shot across the glass. The girl's face twisted in rage. Daniel reached into his coat and pulled out Milo's scarf. He hadn't told anyone, but he'd found it in the attic last night, folded neatly by the trapdoor. Clean, warm, untouched by time. He wrapped it around the mirror and whispered, I choose to remember him, not you. The mirror shattered. Light exploded through the basement, screaming. Hundreds of voices, some familiar, some not, echoed up the stairs and into the walls. The ground shook. The house wailed. And then silence. They woke outside, flat on the ground. Morning light pressing through the trees. The house was gone. No smoke, no ashes, no structure, just an empty field. Daniel turned to Erin. She looked different, lighter, older. You okay? He asked. She nodded. Do you remember what happened? He paused, thought, and then frowned. No, he said. Just pieces. Erin stared at him. Do you remember Milo? Daniel froze. The name sounded familiar, but the image, the voice, the laughter, gone. Who's Milo? He asked slowly. Erin smiled sadly. It worked. The forgotten door. Still opens it had been 3 days since the house vanished. Daniel sat on a rusting park bench across from a lake he didn't remember ever visiting. He had a sketch pad on his lap, lines crisscrossing into shapes that meant nothing, at least not consciously, faces, symbols, a girl with no eyes and a smile that bled across the page. He flipped the sketchbook shut. The quiet was worse than the noise, because in the quiet, Daniel felt something moving just under the surface of his memory, like a name half remembered, or a dream you know was important but can't recall. Something was missing. Someone. And the strange part? Erin wouldn't talk about it. They were staying in a cheap rental house 2 towns over, booked under an alias. Erin said it was for safety. She was acting like they were fugitives, watching the windows, salting the doors, sleeping in shifts. "You don't remember anything, do you?" she asked him one night. He shook his head. "Not even him?" Daniel stared at her. "Who?" She didn't answer, just stood, walked to the bathroom, and locked the door. He heard her sobbing behind it. Later that night, Daniel dreamt of the mirror again. Except this time, it wasn't cracked. It stood perfectly polished in the middle of the lake, half submerged. His reflection stared back at him. But it wasn't just his face. There were others. A small boy with a blue scarf, a woman in a hospital gown, bleeding from the eyes, Erin, younger, smiling, crying. Then the mirror rippled and his reflection whispered, "The door never closed. It just changed houses." He woke up screaming. Erin rushed in, holding a bowl of salt and a lit candle. She didn't ask what he saw. She just circled him in salt and placed the candle at his feet. "We didn't finish it," she said quietly. "We only buried it in our minds. That was the price, and now it's looking for a way back in." Daniel stood up, shaking. "Then why don't I remember?" "Because I took it from you," she said. "I gave up my memory of Milo, our little brother, to finish the ritual. You gave yours too, but it wasn't enough." The name hit him like a slap. Milo, a flicker, a giggle, snowflakes, small shoes tapping on wood, then gone again. He clutched his head. "I don't understand. If we gave our memories, why is it still coming back?" Erin looked pale. "Because there's one more person who still remembers him." They drove all night to visit their mother's sister, Aunt Joni. She lived alone in a cluttered apartment on the edge of town, walls lined with old books, crosses and Polaroids. One entire shelf was covered in candles, another in dusty VHS tapes labeled things like Banishing Rights 1973 and Mirror Trials, Redacted. Joni didn't open the door until Erin shouted, "It's about Milo!" The door creaked open. The old woman stood there, gaunt and trembling, her eyes watery with cataracts, but sharp with recognition. "You weren't supposed to say that." "Name," she hissed. "We need to know what happened," Daniel said. Joni backed away, eyes flicking toward the mirrors in her hallway. Each one had been covered with black cloth. "You kids opened a wound," she whispered, "and wounds like that don't heal. They rot. Your mother tried to bind it, but she was just a conduit. That house, it fed off what she lost." "What?" "She loved Milo," Erin said softly. Joni nodded. "He was the spark. But the flame came from deeper. This thing, this entity, it doesn't just haunt. It rewrites. It pulls out the parts of your soul that love the most and uses them against you." She grabbed Daniel's hand. Her grip was icy. "You don't remember because it made you forget. But forgetting doesn't stop it. It just makes it easier for it to slip in." Daniel's mouth was dry. "So how do we stop it for good?" Joni closed her eyes. "You go back to where it began." They returned to their mother's original childhood home, a rotting farmhouse on the outskirts of Larchville. The place where their mother first started seeing the girl in the mirror. Joni stayed in the car, praying. The siblings stepped onto the porch. The door was locked, chained and bolted. But when Erin touched the handle, every lock clicked open by itself. Inside was cold. Every surface was draped in sheets. The mirrors were uncovered, each one reflecting something slightly off. A door. Behind you, a shadow that wasn't there. A flicker of blue. Daniel whispered, "Why does it feel like we're not supposed to be here?" "Because we aren't," Erin replied, "but we were called here anyway." They found the hidden door in the back of the closet in their grandmother's old room. Behind it was a narrow stairwell, descending into darkness. Candles lit themselves as they stepped inside. At the bottom, they found a room nearly identical to their mother's basement. Same altar, same mirror, except this one was breathing. The surface of the glass fogged, then cleared. A heartbeat pulsed beneath it. Erin stepped forward. "This is the source, the first gate." Suddenly, the glass shimmered. A figure appeared. Milo, smiling, laughing, wearing his blue scarf. Daniel's heart twisted. "I remember," he breathed. Milo's smile faltered. "Don't," he whispered. Behind him, the faceless girl returned. Only this time, her mouth opened wide. Too wide. She crawled out of the mirror like a spider slipping through silk. Erin screamed. Daniel stepped in front of her, but the girl ignored them both. She walked straight toward the mirror behind them and vanished inside it. The glass rippled. Oh, and Daniel saw something terrifying. Their reflection didn't follow. "We're being split," Erin gasped. "She's dividing us from ourselves." Daniel fell to his knees. Voices poured in. "You left me behind. You forgot me. You gave me up. You are the door now." He looked up. The mirror showed a different room now, his motel room, the one they'd stayed in before returning to the house, and sitting in the chair by the door was him. Except his eyes were black. The Daniel in the mirror stood slowly, smiled, raised a knife, and started walking toward the glass from the other side. Erin yanked him back just as the mirror shattered. The air imploded. Screams burst from the floorboards. The walls bled symbols. "Light it!" Erin screamed. Daniel grabbed the gasoline and matches. They lit the room. Flames roared up instantly, racing toward the breathing mirror, swallowing the twisted altar. But the last thing they saw, before the smoke turned everything black, was Milo, standing in the flames, not burning, just watching them with sad, glowing eyes, and whispering, "She's not done with you yet." They made it outside just before the house collapsed. Joni was gone. The car doors were open, the inside smeared with handprints, small, muddy handprints. Daniel collapsed on the dirt. Erin beside him, coughing, weeping. "What did we do?" he asked. Erin didn't answer, because behind them, in the reflection of a puddle, they both saw her face, the girl, no eyes, smiling, the girl in every reflection. They fled to a roadside inn 50 miles from the ashes of the farmhouse. The room was stale with cigarette smoke, the walls a sickly beige, the kind of place where nightmares could bleed in unnoticed. But at least here there were no mirrors. Erin made sure of that. Every reflective surface was either smashed or covered with bedsheets. Still, Daniel felt her eyes, not Erin's. Hers, the eyeless girl. The one who'd climbed from the mirror and followed them through the burning house, through memory, through grief. The girl who had become a shape in every reflection, even in his mind. Erin wouldn't sleep. She kept mumbling to herself, pacing. In a tight line between the bed and the door, we forgot him. Milo, not just once, twice now. We made ourselves forget again. But she didn't. She never forgets. "Who is she?" Daniel asked. Erin finally stopped, looked at him. "You don't remember the girl at all?" He blinked. No. Erin's voice was hollow. "Her name was Ilara. She died in the basement." Daniel stared. "Our basement?" "No, the one before. Mom's first house, Grandma's house. When Mom was a child. That's where it started." Erin sat down, looking 20 years older than she was. She was part of the first ritual, a failed binding. Grandma tried to trap something in the mirror. Instead, she trapped Ilara's soul. Daniel felt the chill deepen. Why was she even part of it? She was a sacrifice, Erin said flatly. The first one. That night, Daniel had another dream, but this one felt real. He stood in a dark hallway, no doors, only mirrors, endless mirrors, stretching down into nothing. In each mirror was a different version of himself, older, younger, broken, bloody. But in every reflection, behind him stood Ilara, grinning, wide-mouthed, head tilted. One of the reflections began to bang on the glass. "Let me out. Let me out. I remember what you did." Another whispered, "She's in Erin now." And then the hallway began to warp, twisting like melting glass. Daniel woke to the sound of whispering, not in his head, from the bathroom. He sat up. The mirror in the motel bathroom had been covered, but now the towel lay crumpled on the floor. The mirror was uncovered, and writing crawled across it, as if etched by a finger from the other side. "Daniel, remember the staircase?" He turned toward Erin, but she was standing in front of the mirror already. Her reflection wasn't moving. It smiled at him, then whispered, "She's awake now." Daniel ran at her, grabbed her shoulders, shook her. "Erin, wake up!" Her eyes snapped open, wild and confused. She stumbled back, looking around. I was dreaming, I think." Daniel pointed at the mirror, but the writing was gone. She looked at him, panic rising. "It's starting again." "No," he said. "It never stopped." They called Joni. No answer. They tried driving back to town, but the road signs had changed. Literally changed. Larchville was gone. Erin tapped the GPS. It spun in circles. Daniel stopped the car at a diner they hadn't seen before, Lark's Nest Cafe. But when they went inside, the waitresses didn't have faces. Their features blurred, smeared like wet paint. One of them placed a menu in front of Daniel. It was blank, except for a name written in childlike handwriting. "Milo." Erin screamed. The waitress opened her mouth, revealing mirror shards where teeth should be. They ran. Outside, the world had shifted. The parking lot was gone. Instead, they stood on their childhood street. Their old house was back, intact, except now it was grey, colourless, dead quiet, and the front door was open. Daniel whispered, "She's pulling us back through memory." "Then we follow it," Erin said. They walked inside. Inside the house, every wall was lined with photos, but not of them. Not of people they knew. Each one showed a different face, some terrified, some smiling, others screaming. A sign above the staircase read, "Memory is the chain. Walk backward to walk free." Erin grabbed his hand. "We have to go down." Daniel hesitated. "That's where Milo—" "I know." The staircase was longer than it should have been. Each step echoed like a drumbeat in their heads, and at the bottom, there she was, Ilara, small, pale, standing in front of the cracked mirror. She was humming something, a lullaby, the same one there. Mother used to sing when they were sick. Erin's voice trembled. "She took it from Mom." Ilara turned around slowly. Her eyes were hollow voids, but she smiled sweetly. "Hello again," she said. "You shouldn't remember me, but you do." Daniel stepped forward. "Why are you doing this?" Ilara cocked her head. "Because you opened the mirror." "No," Erin said. "Our grandmother did." "But you fed it," Ilara whispered. Daniel's heart pounded. "You gave it Milo." Erin started to sob. "That wasn't the deal," she said. "We wanted to forget." "You can't forget what still breathes," Ilara said. She stepped toward them, shadows coiling around her feet. "I am what you forgot. I'm every love left behind, every name cut out of memory, every child sacrificed to silence grief." Daniel gritted his teeth. "Then take me! Leave her!" Ilara smiled wider. "I already did," Erin screamed. Daniel turned, her reflection in The mirror was laughing, not her real self, the reflection. It raised its hand and smashed through the glass. The real Erin staggered backward, bleeding from her chest. "Daniel," she gasped. "She's inside me." Ilara vanished in a blink. Now there was only Erin, but her eyes had gone black. Daniel cried out, backing up. She took a step toward him. "It's okay," she said, in a voice that wasn't hers. "She only wants the truth. Just let it in." Daniel had one chance. He grabbed the shard of mirror glass from the floor, held it up to Erin's face. In the reflection, it wasn't her, it was Ilara, smiling, but behind her, in the mirror, Milo stood, crying, holding something, a photo of the three of them, Daniel, Erin, and Milo, together, unbroken. Daniel turned the shard on himself, saw the face he forgot, his own, but not twisted, not scared, just sad. He whispered, "I remember you now. All of you." The mirror pulsed. Erin dropped to the floor, screaming. Black mist poured from her mouth. And out stepped Ilara, writhing, melting. "No!" she shrieked. "Memory is mine!" Daniel faced her. "You were a child. You were forgotten." "But I remember now." He stepped toward the mirror. "Milo didn't die in vain. You didn't either." He pressed the shard into the altar, and for a moment, silence. Then the mirror imploded, a blast of white light, a scream that tore through every wall, and then nothing. They woke up in the ashes of their old house. Daylight. The world felt real again. No shadows, no echoes. Erin stirred beside him. "Is it over?" she asked. Daniel looked up at the sky. "I don't think so. But I think she's finally resting." Erin squeezed his hand. "And Milo?" Daniel didn't answer, but in the wind they heard a child's laugh. Soft, free, the final memory. The ashes were still warm when they left. Daniel and Erin didn't speak much on the drive. The radio stayed off. Their phones didn't work. It was as if the universe itself had taken a breath and decided not to exhale until everything had settled. The silence was fragile, like glass. Daniel thought about Milo, his laugh, the way he used to build blanket forts and pretend they were castles, the way he died, forgotten, erased from memory by a curse that fed on silence and grief. But he remembered now. They both did, and something about that felt dangerous. They checked into a small cabin far upstate, mountains, lakes, no mirrors. That was Erin's one request. No reflections, she said. Daniel agreed. But part of him knew it wasn't over. Not completely. You don't just break a curse that old and cruel with one act of remembrance. You wound it. You force it back into hiding. But it waits. The past is patient. And Ilara had waited before it. Was on the third night at the cabin that Erin woke screaming. Daniel rushed to her side. She was drenched in sweat, clawing at her arms. "She's still here," she sobbed. "Inside me." "No," he said gently. "We cast her out." Erin stared at him, haunted. "You saw what she was. She doesn't need a body, just pain, just a name said wrong or forgotten." Daniel sat beside her. "Then let's say his name." Together they whispered, "Milo." That day Daniel did something he never thought he'd be able to do. He called his parents. He asked about Milo. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. And then their father said, "I don't know who you're talking about." Daniel felt the ice return. "It's happening again," Erin said, eyes wide with terror. The forgetting had started again. That night, the walls bled. Dark trails of mirror-black liquid seeped down from the ceiling, forming words that pulsed and shimmered. "Forget or bleed." Erin screamed and tried to scrub it off with a towel, but the liquid only smeared across the walls, showing faces beneath the wood, crying, howling, drowned in silver. Daniel reached into the drawer for the journal, the one they'd started the night they remembered Milo, but every page had turned blank. Even the ink had faded. "No," he whispered. No, no, no! Erin collapsed against the wall, sobbing. She's erasing us too. They packed within 5 minutes, but as they opened the cabin door, the world outside wasn't the forest anymore. It was a hall of mirrors, a maze, every direction, infinite corridors of glass and shadow. Daniel reached for Erin, but she was gone. He spun in place. Only his own reflection stared back. Then Ilara's face replaced his. She grinned, stretching from ear to ear. You remembered him. That was brave. Daniel stepped back. Where is Erin? She's walking her own memory, Ilara said. You can't help her now. Why are you doing this? He asked. Ilara tilted her head. Because pain must echo. You broke the chain. But you didn't bury it. She raised her hands. Let's dig it up, shall we? Suddenly Daniel was no longer in the cabin. He was in their grandmother's basement again, only this time. He saw it, everything, the ritual, the symbols, the blood, the mirror, and Ilara, a small girl in a red dress bound at the wrists, crying, not evil, not a monster, a child. He watched as their grandmother whispered in tongues, dragging a knife through the air, and then the mirror cracked. Ilara screamed, but nothing happened. Until Milo came down the stairs, holding a toy truck. Grandma, he said. She didn't look at him, the mirror did, and that's when it took him. Daniel dropped to his knees, sobbing. We didn't know. We didn't know. But Ilara was beside him now, grown, pale, hollow-eyed. You do now. She knelt down beside him. Now you get to make a choice. Daniel looked up, shaking. What choice? In every generation, Ilara whispered, a memory must be taken. A child must be given, or the curse eats everything. He stared at her. You want another child? Ilara said nothing. Her silence was answer enough. Daniel looked at his hands. Then he heard a giggle. Behind him stood Milo, alive, unharmed, wearing the same pajamas he wore the day he vanished. Danny, the boy asked softly. Where's Mom? Daniel choked on a sob. She's not here. Ilara stepped forward. One must stay. What? One soul must anchor the memory, or it all collapses. Daniel stood. Then take me. Let Milo go. Ilara's smile faded. It doesn't work like that. He stepped between them. Take me instead. Her voice was barely a whisper. Will you carry every forgotten soul? Every child who was traded away? Every mirror that ever lied? Will you be the anchor? Daniel didn't hesitate. Yes. Ilara reached out, touched his forehead. Daniel gasped. Every scream, every twisted memory, every cold night, every child's cry flooded into him. His body convulsed. His skin cracked, but he didn't fall. He stood. Ilara stepped back, her face softening for the first time. Then we are free. She turned to Milo. Go. Milo ran toward the light. Erin was there, waiting. She caught him in her arms, sobbing. Daniel. Watch them from the mirror. On the other side now, the Guardian. Erin screamed his name. Daniel! But he only smiled, raised a hand, and mouthed, Remember me. The mirror shattered. 1 year later, Milo plays in the backyard, laughing. Erin watches from the porch. The house is quiet now, peaceful. No more mirrors hang in the halls, but one remains, tucked in a drawer, wrapped in cloth. She unwraps it once, a year on Daniel's birthday, just to say his name, just to remember. That night, as she sleeps, Milo whispers, Mom. Yes, baby. I saw Uncle Daniel in the mirror. Erin's heart skips. What did he say? Milo smiles. He said, thank you. Final line. Some doors never stay locked, but some souls choose to guard them. The end.